For scientific purposes, I'm gonna need all of her exact dimensions, okay? For science. Hey! And welcome back to the dissection table. Here we take the latest video games, show you latest comics, movies, more, and break them down bit by bit. And man, oh man, we've been having a lot of fun whenever we first started covering the Absolute Universe with Absolute Batman last year. But it's not just about the Dark Knight. Don't get me wrong, whenever it comes to the Absolute Universe, I think all the stories we've gotten involving the Absolute Batman have been amazing and the best stories we've seen thus far. But like I said, it's not just about him. Right here we are at the dissection table, we've also covered the first 2 issues of Absolute Green Arrow. That 3rd issue is coming up this week too, by the way. And then there's the other characters we haven't covered just yet, including Absolute Flash, Absolute Wonder Woman, and of course Absolute Superman, which whenever it comes time later this year, yes, we are going to be kicking this one off first. Normally don't do spoilers, but it's about time we got to this because some of the stories whenever it comes to Absolute Superman are a pretty good contender for the best stories coming out of the Absolute Universe because, my God, holy double hammer, and not in a fun way either. But before we get to those amazing other characters and their respected stories and everything, we still have one other character we need to cover first, which has already been introduced over in the Absolute Universe whenever it comes to Batman. That being Catwoman, Absolute Catwoman, issue number 1. So without further ado, kicking off over in London, the UK, the UK. A morning cup of tea ain't getting this doctor out of the grave in the morning. I'm gonna need something a little bit stronger. Sorry about that, I had to get that out of my system. Anyway, we see that Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, is narrating. We apparently see her going through what appears to be just an average ordinary routine for Catwoman. She's monologuing, basically saying it's basically the equivalent of the thrill of the hunt. The prep work, the time, the scoping out of the lay of the land of where she's going to perform these heists. Things look like they're going pretty good until Catwoman gets jumped by Catwoman. Specifically, Catwoman gets jumped by Absolute Catwoman. What's going on? Catwoman uses her onboard AI that we didn't previously know that she had whenever it came to that very fancy helmet of hers. Interactive AI. They're just amazing these days. They're all the rage, aren't they, nurse?
Yep, also, I need a raise.
Not happening. Anyway, Catwoman asks Jonesy to run a scan on this other Catwoman, and there's nothing. No identifiable features, no fingerprints, nothing. This person is a ghost. But that's when Catwoman discovers that this other Catwoman, she didn't come here alone. With her are 4 other additional Catwomen, and these other Catwomen are, as it turns out, are the members of the Calico Group, basically a band of other fellow thieves that were taught under the tutelage of Catwoman, Absolute Catwoman. At least they look like the Calicos on the surface. Selina, she doesn't have time to ask questions because they're here to basically do her in. And this is where we find out Absolute Catwoman is an absolute unit. She completely flies through her apartment. This is actually her place that these other Catwomen broke into, and she flies and dives and dodges and weaves throughout all of them and makes quick work of them. And we also identify other really cool things about her, that she's very high-tech as compared to someone like Batman. Other than having mastered multiple forms of combat, we also find out that she's high-tech, like I said. Has one of her ears, for example, is an EMP that I believe she used right here to basically shut down any electronic devices the other Catwoman might have had. And we also find out that her tail has a shared neurological link between the suit and her body. This is why she can actually effectively function the tail like a third arm. As the Catwomen get their butts promptly kicked, Selina discovers that they weren't here really to fight, but to distract, because she finds out that her place has been rigged to go kaboom! Explosion noises. Okay, what in the world is going on? Let's slow it down. This is actually prior to all of this happening, and we see the daily life of Selina Kyle. She wakes up in a bed that's bigger than half of our houses all put together, and then she also gets a phone call. As it turns out, this issue takes place on Selina Kyle's 25th birthday because, and this isn't just an ordinary birthday, she's actually planning her retirement. So she wakes up, she kicks off her day, and is scheduling a appointment over phone of where she's going to be going later. We'll see that in a minute. But before she heads out the door, she first heads down into the basement of the Catcave. Where's the justice for Batman? Joker gets the Batcave. Catwoman gets the Catcave. Where's justice for Absolute Batman? But yeah, she has all this fancy tech, all these toys, because she has an ungodly amount of money. How much money? This kind of money. This is her home. This is where she lives, and they say crime doesn't pay. Just a casual, little impromptu little visit to her home, casually dismissing the fact that her brand new pet panther ultimately mauled a couple tamers, and by maul I mean those people probably didn't survive. Just an average Tuesday. Now that was the beginning of the day. Now we move over to the late evening, where Selina returns back to her home back over in London, and this is where once again she's celebrating her 25th birthday all alone. We have been there. Not every birthday is a party. That is until an unexpected guest bypasses all the security at her home. Catwoman. This isn't just anyone. This is Holly Robinson, one of the closest friends and allies to Catwoman. So much so, not only in the mainline DC comic book universe, but also here in the Absolute universe as well. They were kids, they were orphans way back in the day in Gotham City, and yes, they were, even when they were kids, they were practicing to become the master thieves that they would later on become. But yes, just like how it is in the mainline universe, it's the same over here in the Absolute universe. Holly is best friends with Selena Kyle. And just like Selena Kyle, Holly is a master thief, hence why she was able to bypass all her security, because Selena taught her everything she knows. But unfortunately, she's here to make a request. A request because things aren't looking that great for Holly. That's definitely gonna need a little bit of an ice pack. And the request comes in the form of a job, but Selena goes on to say that she's a solo act. She only works alone, she doesn't work with Holly, she doesn't work with the Calicos. But there's some bad blood, there's some history here. Holly's request kind of falls on deaf ears because Selena is still a little upset. She did care for Holly and the rest of the members of the Calicos, but she cared a little too much. We don't get a whole lot of details of the context of the falling out of the group, but it's pretty bad and Selena's still pissed. Holly then is obviously being dismissed by Selena right here, so she kind of guilt trips her, basically saying, your life's doing just great, we're just fine on our own, we definitely don't need you. Again, kind of guilt tripping her as she throws herself out the door and leaves the birthday cake with Selena. The guilt tripping tactic working a little bit on Selena, so she is kind of curious of what's going on, but as she goes to cut the cake right here, she discovers that Holly basically left a little surprise. This little blue orb that was hidden within the cake. And this is where we come full circle, because the moment she discovers this item, whatever in the world it is, her security gets stripped and Catwoman has to suit up. We return to the beginning of the comic where Selena just got blown right out of her apartment and her suit is so high-tech it even comes complete with an emergency parachute. A superhero landing that has consequences, multiple fractures and broken bones. Yeah, superhero landings don't work. And the Calico gang is trying to make a quick getaway, but Catwoman is in hot pursuit and immediately deploys underneath the building where her suite was her very, very high-tech bike. She's in hot pursuit. She's not gonna let this stand. It's here Selena discovers that not only have the Calicos turned tail and are running, they've also abducted Holly as well, along with the artifact that she was trying to hide in Selena's cake. Whatever it is, it's worth kidnapping and even trying to kill Selena over. And even as the apparent leader of the Calico gangs accidentally causes all these cars to crash on this highway right here, thinking it'll slow down Selena, little do they suspect that her bike is a mech, casually able to transform during the whole entire chase sequence and casually jump and leap over all the crashed cars. God, I want to get one of those. And unfortunately, we're kind of getting crunched on time, so you are going to have to break down Absolute Catwoman Issue 1 into a Part 2. But if you enjoyed the breakdown so far, please make sure to give me a follow, like, and a comment over here, and definitely make sure you hit that follow so I can continue to keep you informed on all things video game trailers, comics, movies, and more, and Part 2 of Absolute Catwoman Issue 1 when that drops later today. And also check out the description down below where you'll find links that lead you to the Wings of the Asylum, including YouTube, Twitch, and Kick. And of course, over on the YouTube wing of this time, you'll find dedicated playlists of all the videos I've made whenever it comes to all the issues on Absolute Batman and more. But again, hope y'all enjoyed and hope to see y'all in the next one.